So before I left Syracuse, which was a choice I made really just sort of because I was involved in so many things and burnt out and exhausted and broke and kind of just feeling like I needed to blow off some steam and maybe kind of let some water flow under the bridge. But before I did that, I in addition to running the organization, getting involved in things like 40 Below, the Cultural District Commission and the Arts and Cultural Leadership Alliance and some other things like that. I am really passionate about this city, and when I was deciding pretty much that it was sort of like make it or break it, there happened to be a mayoral cycle coming through in 2005. So I put together a really hodgepodge group of friends and confidants, and we came up with a campaign called Yes Syracuse, is an independent third party campaign called Youth Empowered Sustainability. And we had come up with a program called Yes Sustainable Syracuse, excuse me. And we went as so far as to kind of lay out a plan, a master plan, for the city. Oddly, Route 81 removal. Look at that. This is 2005. I won't get into the details. I'll have all this information available for people to click and download. And Joyful Pathways, the People's Waterfront, a revitalized downtown, the Harbor District, Onondaga Creek Eco Development Zone. So, we got into some really futuristic kind of stuff, and got into a lot of detail. And as a matter of fact, this program, Sustainable Syracuse, was adopted by the Green Party candidate. We had a press conference at the top of one of the major hotels. These panels were blown up life size, and we had the press corps there. And so we were talking about sustainable transportation systems. We were talking about remediation. We were talking about green technology. We were talking about bringing back our waterfronts and our waterways. We were talking about dense urban development. Getting out of the suburban housing model while preserving our rural areas around the area, the farmland, the park spaces. We were talking about, really building upon the beautiful density of downtown and getting more modern buildings built in with sort of juxtaposed to the older ones. Of course, a robust public arts campaign, taking advantage of our waterfront, our lake, our inner harbor. A lot of this was really talking about just sort of low impact, simple quality of life enhancements, fire on the water, botanical gardens, talking about transit oriented development up and down Erie Boulevard, for example, would be high dense housing above the big box malls, and then you'd have a bus rapid transit or a personal rapid transit taking you to the Dome, taking you to downtown, the waterfront, the mall, and sort of getting out of our cars. So, that's what Sustainable Syracuse was all about. And we really floated a balloon up there in 2005 to say, what is the future of Syracuse? What is the vision of this city and this community? And again, this is a re-envisioning of Erie Boulevard. If you can see, that's, from the perspective, it's just no density now, but you got 6 lanes of cars. Well, why don't we commingle different forms of transit and bring density to the curb and really create a linear village along our major boulevard? And of course, Elevating Erie has come along a decade later and is stoking some of these ideas again. We were talking about, here's some rooftop gardening, Save the Rain program. We're talking about building a full-time amphitheater in Clinton Square, bringing back a feature of the canal or the canal, reincorporating mass transit. We used to have trains running through downtown and trolleys, bring the trains and trolleys back. They can be electric now, of course. They used to be electric if they weren't coal-fired, that's no good. But you could see through some of these renderings that we did for our campaign that this is really ultimately, Syracuse as a future eco city. And I after losing that campaign, I was not elected to be the mayor of Syracuse. As a matter of fact, it sort of devolved into a write-in campaign. My signatures were challenged, and so there wasn't an opportunity for me to really even be on the ballot and considered. So I wouldn't have won. It's all good, but at the same time, I was able to get that out there. It was able to be published. The Green Party again came in and adopted my public arts policy that I had authored with my cohorts, and so there's again leave behinds there. I think that the future mayor that won, Driscoll, rebranded Syracuse Emerald City, and Sustainable Syracuse was a part of that branding. So again, I no ill will, because that was definitely effort worth putting out there, and it allowed me a foray into sort of politics and getting involved into a door knocking campaign and meeting my neighbors and seeing what it's like to voluntarily choose yourself to lead and get involved in legislation and all that great stuff. So I pulled this image up, or these images up, because this was my next destination. I had to boogie out of Syracuse, and so it was sort of a little bit of an existential crisis. Maybe I felt like a lot, sort of went down the tubes that didn't need to go down the tubes. We had a really good thing going with our organization, and we were at the precipice of really breaking through financially, and it all sort of unraveled. So I took the opportunity to apply to be a full-time resident volunteer with the Nyingma Buddhist group in California. They're Tibetan, but they have a sect that's relocated in Northern California. And so landed in Oakland, San Francisco area, Berkeley area, spent a few months there, did some training and some work. They own Dharma Publishing, which is the third largest publishing company of Buddhist texts in the world. They do Western translations, and they also send tons of Sanskrit original, Prajnaparamita and all kinds of old sutras and stuff like that back to India, Nepal, and Tibet. And so I ended up then taking the opportunity to move up to the mountain site, which is what you see here. I lived on the mountaintop across the way. This is where the Lama lives, and this is where a lot of the volunteers live here at the temple. And so for a year, oh, my kitty's howling in the background. Hi, Suki. It was, if you can believe that this is in the United States, this is a magnificent facility, hand-built by volunteers since the 1960s, early 1970s. It's been growing exponentially. And so they have a printing press up there. They have retreat facilities. They have prayer facilities. They have residential facilities. They have horses. They have farms. You name it. And so, I was kind of like this guy over here, but I was working on the publishing side, and loved it. I woke up. I did yoga every day. It was when I went fully vegetarian. All of the food was vegetarian. Had every food I could imagine at my fingertips. You have 3 meals a day. It's lush, and it's hard work. You work long hours. You're expected to do the other activities as well. But it was exactly what I needed at the time. And, sort of long story short, I actually thought I was going to be living out here much longer. This is Sonoma, California, north of San Francisco. And I had a little cabin in the woods. And I was hired to run a marketing division of Dharma Publishing after some of the work I had been doing there. And I came back to Syracuse to get my belongings. And I got in touch with the general manager who had given me the contract, who had hired me to come back out here. This is where I would have been living and working, at Ratna Ling, which is the the facility that they built, administrative facility and retreat facility. And he decided to take a position in Brazil. So he and his wife left and contacted me a few weeks after I had come back to New York to get my things, my animals. I bought a car and to go back and live and work here full time. And said, we moved to Brazil. The opportunity may still be there for you, but we can't guarantee it. So you may want to rethink what your plans are. So although this is paradise, and it was paradise, and I was basically living in one of these guys. It was actually a mixed cabin with multiple roommates. We called it the Scorpion Hut because we always had scorpions in it. And this is the facility. So I decided to stay. I was in Ithaca, New York, crashing on a friend's couch at the time, and I wasn't quite ready to come back to Syracuse. So I decided to stay in Ithaca. Again, found myself penniless and without a job and without direction, but at least had the cozy confines of a friend's home. And he helped me out, fed me, clothed me, and gave me the basics that I needed to get up and off my feet. And that's what really kind of was my next cycle back to the Northeast in the Finger Lakes area to gorgeous Ithaca, New York.